Hello and welcome to Highly Informed. I'm your host, Shaun Salvaje. Highly Informed is all about entheogenic education and news you can use when it comes to the world of cannabis and psychedelics. I'm here today with Cynthia Cabrera. What don't you do in this community? Cynthia's with Hometown Hero, which is an original ATX-based business.
Correct.
Yes, veteran-owned. Cannot say enough good things. And also, you're on the Texas Hemp Business Council.
I'm president of the Texas Hemp Business Council.
The president of the Texas Damn! Cynthia needs no introduction, really, because she's a well-known face and name in Texas. And to be honest, if you ask me, every hemp business owner owes their livelihood to y'all. It's your injunction that saved our market. So thank you so much. We'll explain what that means because people are like, an injunction? What are you talking about? I thought we made laws in other ways, but we also make them through lawsuits sometime. Cynthia, SB3. Let's just dive right into it.
Let's just jump right into it.
Oh my gosh. So I saw Cynthia March 3rd. We were all testifying for the Senate hearing against SB3, which is a ban against cannabis and hemp. It's an all-out ban.
It's an all-out ban.
No, only things you can have are CBD and CBG, which in isolation, which is kind of impossible. The plant doesn't even do that.
Yeah, it would have made more sense if the bill had been like a one-pager that said we ban everything, as opposed to pretending to carve out, CBD and CBG to those levels, because it's not even scientifically possible, right?
Do you think they know that?
Probably.
I mean, it was intentional?
I think everything is intentional. They've been gunning for this industry for a long time. There are some big concerns, or I should say entities, that are also gunning for this industry. And it's just kind of like lined up to be a perfect storm. So I do think it's intentional.
I don't think people realize, and I want to dive into this with you. We don't have to do it right off the bat, but I don't think folks realize it's not just the legislators trying to ban it. There's a lot of other powers that be, including alcohol and big pharma, who we always like to say they, and we all know it's them. But there's other players very specifically playing. So we're not just fighting legislators with misinformation who are more than happy to bring up witnesses who will testify. Some of the secondhand smoke heart attack, what? I couldn't believe it. And the temptation to go smoke. I don't want to be a baddie like that, but a petty one. Not a petty baddie, but after enough bullshit, you get to a point, because everyone who shows up in the room on the cannabis side, some not so much, but mostly yes, are business owners who are coming with facts and information. We're prepared to have an actual argument so we can move legislation in a direction, in a direction at least. And then we have testimonial that's delivered that is completely fabricated at times. Those numbers, Senator Perry himself, and I keep trying to I'm going to be friends with you, Senator, whether you like it or
Good
not.
luck.
We're going to be friends, sir. I'm a Texan too, and I'll kill you with kindness. But he said that a death had resulted from consumption, and that's not true. You cannot overdose on cannabis. So with everything, I've set the stage for the audience. They know what's happening in Texas. This is crazy. We're definitely reefer madness. I feel like 1.0. They're saying 2.0. I feel like we never left. How are you seeing things play out on the Senate floor and behind the scenes?
Well, to your point, so for anybody who doesn't know, there was a hearing this past Monday, and it was like 10 hours of testimony. So it was with the State Affairs Committee on the Senate side, and there were 20 people in support of the ban bill, meaning 20 witnesses in support of the ban bill. There were 200, just under 200 people registered to speak in opposition to the ban bill. Senator Perry cleared the gallery at one point because people cheered a mom who was talking about how she needed the products for her child, and people started clapping for her. She was crying. It was like a whole thing. And so he threw everybody out.
Shout out to Piper Lindeen.
Yes. So he threw everybody out unless you were on the first floor, which is, typically where the people testifying are. threw everybody out. So we lost some numbers. But at the end of the day, we had over 100 people testifying in opposition to SB3. The reason that I say that it's intentional is because we had an attorney who pointed out all the legal troubles with that bill. It's not enforceable. We had a chemist who talked about how the numbers that they want to get to are impossible in terms of testing and in terms of getting to that pure form of isolate, right? But this morning, they voted it out. No amendments, no changes, no nothing. So they literally, this is why it's intentional. Because if you were actually thoughtful and you actually were concerned about making sure that you passed a good bill, it wouldn't have passed today. You'd be working on that bill, getting some amendments, rereading the testimony from the attorneys and the chemists and all that good stuff. And none of that happened, right? And so we are now faced, so now it goes to the full Senate. And I know that you have lobby day tomorrow, so I hope that the Senate offices are going to feel the heat. But on that note, I do want to say that one of the things that really dismayed me about the hearing on Monday, and I was there for most of it. I think we left an hour early because I was literally going to just like keel over from hunger. But anyway.
And the senators, I watched them walk back, come back chewing and I was like, how dare you? This woman is talking about her child and you're going to the back room and then you're telling me, oh, we're just real busy. Yeah. So are all of us. You called this session on a business day in the morning and we're all here. You're getting paid to be here by us and our tax-paying dollars.
Don't take my word for it. You can look at the video. Senator Perry would turn his back on people while they were talking. He would just chit-chat with somebody else, and it's your bill. It's his bill. And,
right. He authored it.
Correct. It's his bill. So one of the things that dismayed me, and one of the things that will work against us, and I hope you guys are mindful about this, and I'm sure you will be when you go in tomorrow, is that we do not win by throwing other parts of the hemp industry under the bus. We don't win by calling out a different category. We don't win by saying, this is a shitty product, but look at how good my product is. We don't win that way. That is not how you do it, because nobody's going to get a carve out. Nobody's going to get an exemption. It's either going to be everybody wins or everybody dies. That's what it's going to, should have been loses. But
or the reality.
My metaphors are off.
Some folks have sunk their livelihood into
Absolutely.
this, and it is really not death, but pretty damn close.
No, that's what it is. It's death. And it's really interesting because they issued a fiscal note, and I was sick this weekend, so I didn't have a chance to clean it up or whatever, but they issued a fiscal note and they said that SB3 would only hit or affect 10% of the market. Yeah, it's insane. So what I want everybody to do.
If it would only hit that many, then why is it an issue?
Yeah, why?
If it's only 10%, what's the problem?
What's the problem?
Yeah.
I know, it's shocking. But what we're dealing with, we're dealing with true believers. And I don't know if there's any Buddhists in the room, but Buddhists will set themselves on fire. You do not negotiate with people who will set themselves on fire. Right. And that's what we have. We have some folks in the legislature who are not looking for a compromise.
And they're not setting themselves on fire. They're willing to set patients,
veterans,
and mothers
on fire. Absolutely.
Yep.
But my point is that you have to know who you can deal with and who you can't. And so when you get a true believer, that's willing to set themselves on fire, metaphorically, that's not who you have to deal with. Right. You have to go to the other people who seem kind of more rational or more reasonable or more willing. The problem for this industry right now is that its popularity has created a lot of enemies. So a lot of the reason that SB3 is out there is because the medical marijuana program wants hemp gone. They had a report commissioned that literally said, and I can't remember the page number, up until the other day I could remember the page number, but it literally says, in order for TCUP to survive, you have to get rid of the hemp market because it's what people prefer. That's a quote.
They prefer it. And this is where, as a patient, I get so frustrated with the TCUP program because I've supported them. I've done events for them. I have done events for these organizations, knowing they're parent organizations, and I've questioned myself, but I've said it's for the good of the community. Right now, we need to build awareness. I would love for them to understand that they need to fight to unhinge their regulations, not cut ours, because every time they do that, another patient that they could have had walks away. The guy who was testifying next to me literally said, I will never buy from TCUP again. Once you buy something from someone and you find you got a bad deal, you don't go back. And the fratricide between medical hemp and cannabis across the nation is absurd, because it's as if I want to tell him, yeah, you should be fighting to have full flower. You should be fighting to have THC, no low dose, dose recommended by provider. You should be fighting for things, not against your partners in the industry.
They don't see it as a partnership. They see it as an inconvenience. And this is the thing, even if, and I'm not saying that they will, but even if they were able to get rid of the hemp industry, it doesn't mean that Texas Original, for example, is suddenly going to be making billions of dollars, right? People are going to find what they want somewhere else, right?
So these guys bought on because of 1505, which Senator Perry also authored.
They were already bought on. They were pushing to get rid of hemp last year. 1505 is the thing that it's two different things. I never hear anybody in the hemp space, and it's all cannabis, right? Cannabis is the botanical term for the flower. The legal definitions are hemp and marijuana, right? You're one or you're the other one. I never, ever, ever hear people in the hemp space saying these marijuana people need to go, but it's always the other way around. The marijuana people have a hard-on for the hemp space, although they're okay selling drinks that they can transport across the state because they're using hemp. So there's a massive hypocrisy in there. And when you try to dominate a market through regulatory capture, I mean, I was talking to somebody Friday night at that party, and they said to me, they were like, how greedy can you be? I said, well, you can be greedy enough that you're okay to put 50,000 people out of work, because no hemp company has a problem with TCUP expanding. Do whatever you need to do. It's a different lane. Go do your thing.
Make
go
it
with
better.
God.
We want you to use our technology to innovate.
Yes.
They wouldn't be able to introduce into the medical program the vape technology that it was developed through using hemp here.
Yeah.
This is how this stuff is developed. It's through private industry. Then when medical wants to cannibalize the rest of us, I think what they're missing is they think, oh, we're going to be the only three. SB 1505 only gives them a few additional locations. It's not like they're going to be crawling or even logistically able to actually run in any reasonable period of time. So they're not actually making money on this.
Well, so what they're looking for is a state-sponsored monopoly, which is what every single marijuana program is a state-sponsored monopoly, because you have a limited number of licenses. Some people can get it and some people can't. And I say this all the time, and I don't care if it pisses people off. The marijuana industry is elitist, and the hemp industry is egalitarian. Egalitarian means there is an equal opportunity for everybody. So the point is that if you're not making money because of TCUP, because of the restrictions, why don't you sell hemp? You could easily get into the hemp market tomorrow, but nobody in the hemp market is going to get a medical marijuana license in Texas. It's not going to happen.
But they did all apply.
Oh, yeah. Everybody applied. They're just not going to get it.
I think that there is SB 170, which I tried to drop. So I know we're just dropping bill numbers. So SB 1505, only the three operators who are already operating get to expand satellite operations. So, which is a good thing, but only three. SB 170 gives 300 and has a scale to go up for every 100,000 patients.
Yeah.
They'll release this many more license. I think we only have 180 to 200 medical license applicants at this current moment. That means all of them could get it if we did that, but they don't want to hear that.
That bill will never pass.
Tell us why.
Because the legislature doesn't want it. It's a conservative legislature. They've bought into the narrative, and this goes back to what I said originally. They've bought into the narrative that these are dangerous products, and people are dropping dead on the street or something like that. There's no evidence of this, right? But they've bought into that.
Or they're using it to perpetuate.
Or they're using
that they
it.
Know.
Intentionality again.
Yeah.
They're using it because it's convenient for them. We do these videos at Hometown Hero like all the time, and so we release them. And last week I found out when we were at the legislature that somebody had clipped a piece of a video that we did completely out of context. So in the video, I was saying, they're always complaining about the children. Why don't they just pass an age gate? That's easy enough to do. But what they did was they clipped it to where I said, oh my God, they're always complaining about the children. Full stop. So they left out all the rest of it, and they were passing that around. They were emailing it to staffers and people in the legislature. So playing dirty is definitely on the table for these people. So, everybody who's like, oh no, we all need to be friends and we just need to no, this is war. This is like, and I always say all the time, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And that is where we are right now. Like, it's balls to the wall, like, thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome to clap. Amen.
But stop looking. We are not in a place where we can look for compromises at this time. We're not throwing other segments. You think that if you go and you say, hey, well, let's just get rid of flour, or let's just get rid of drinks, or let's just get rid of that they're going to give everybody else a pass? Has anything that they have done thus far indicated that they're willing to give a pass on anything? And it's like, so when you guys do your Hill Day tomorrow, please, there are economic numbers out there, and our bill should be filed today. And the new economic impact report, the updated one from 2022, should also be out today.
So tell me what you can tell us about your bill first.
Okay.
Because I have an idea. It will be informed by the economic impact, which you guys have studied.
We have studied it quite a bit, actually. And so what the bill that we're filing does is it closes the issues that everybody was worried about, like that. And we tried in 2023 to get an age gate bill passed, and it got zero traction. They were not interested at all. There are competing theories about why that is, but regardless, it didn't pass. So our bill does have the 21 and over with an exemption for veterans between the ages of 18 and 21. It's got final product testing. It's got, because this is important to the legislature, U.S. ownership of farms, right? So just the farms. And it just specifies, it just clarifies some stuff. The thing is that in 2019, when they regulated this, despite legislators saying this is unregulated, the same people who voted for it saying it is unregulated, it was actually a pretty comprehensive set of regulations that they came out with in 2019. They did a pretty good job. They missed child-resistant packaging and they missed age gating, right? And then it was kind of loose on when you have to test the product. But otherwise, they did a pretty decent job. I mean, I would hold, in the absence of this ban, I would hold Texas out as a beacon or as an example for good regulation that allows a market to grow.
A free market.
A free
which
market.
Which is so damn Texan. Like,
right.
What they're proposing is anti-Texan.
Or used to be anyway.
It is. Well,
it used to be.
We do have billionaires floating around. It is South by. But we can still fight.
Well,
or you become a self-made billionaire, or at least I think that you have a shot at it because you have a free, unhindered market. This is not that. This is not Texas.
I went to a marijuana investor conference in October, and people were pitching for money, and you could tell who had a plan for what or whatever based on the outlines that they were giving for their pitch. And there was a banker from New York. I don't remember her name, but at one point she said, I don't know why anybody would try to legalize marijuana at this point instead of stabilizing the hemp market in Texas. She's like, this is an amazing market. No other state has this. Why are you jumping over
It's the
this
perfect
part?
building block.
It is. And she was like, get this thing. And I was like, oh, thank Jesus. Like somebody heard me.
And we saw, this was what boggled me about the testimony, especially the Allen police officers. They'll never let me go to Allen if I talk about this. They'll just put me on the radar.
And a picture, I'll get picture on a billboard wanted. When you drive in.
Canna mom. So the Allen police officers, I don't know if they realize this, and I'll have to find their testimony, but inadvertently, I was taking notes because that's what I do. I'm a note taker, journalist. He said, well, it's helped us to get drugs off the streets, but now it's in the retail shops. And we're like, well, sir, so it's not on the streets, you say. It's behind a door that is a brick and mortar location, you say, that can be inspected, you say. So you say it's helped us get the drugs off the street? And then Cynthia also shared with me privately some information, which I interpreted differently. But why don't you... So the fees, what have you learned about? And then we'll get to the economic
Okay.
impact. What have you learned about where you've heard that the fees may be going? I know this is speculative.
No, it's all good.
But if it is true.
I just want to follow up on your Allen thing real quick, and then I'll tell you about the fees. So that officer testified that he was in support of banning the hemp industry and that he was also in full support of 1505, which would expand TCUP by allowing them to sell flower and vapes. If you can't tell right now whether flower is marijuana or hemp, how are you going to tell if it came from TCUP or if it came from Oklahoma?
Exactly.
How are you fixing a problem with this, right? But I mean, just, you got to think things through.
I mean, we're helping them keep it off the streets. And what else?
So with regard to the fees, it wasn't me, but somebody else did a FOIA request because they're always saying, oh, we don't have money for enforcement. We need to give them more money for enforcement. And every time a national group or a Texas group writes a report, 50, 60, 70 pages, whatever, I will read the entire report. And then I call my PR guy and I'm like, get me in touch with these people because I need to tell them about their report. And in every single report, it will say something like, there's not enough money for enforcement. They can't keep up with this. So basically what they're saying is shut it down or put in more money for enforcement. But I'm always like, where did the money go? Where does the money go? So every store that spends their $150, and I'll only talk about the stores for a minute, where's that money go? And I talked to a friend of mine who's former DPS, and he was like, oh, you guys probably paved a road somewhere. And I'm like, but that's supposed to be for the hemp program. So somebody did a FOIA request because I brought that up. And it turns out that in 2020, so this was up until like August of 2024, they had taken in that year, in 2024, up until August, I think it was, $1.2 million in fees. But only 30% of it seems to have gone to enforcement. So what is happening to the other money? So you can't sit up there and testify.
70% of 1.4 million.
1.2 million.
1.2. Where's it going?
Where's it going? You can't sit up there and testify and say that there's no money for enforcement. There's money. It's just not being used for it.
Where'd you allocate it?
Where'd you put it? And then if you listen to the guy he's the state's forensic scientist. I don't remember his name.
And he tells us about how arduous the testing is.
It's so arduous. Somebody else
For them
testified.
it is because they're not using private innovated industry that the hemp that we came up with.
Well, I've heard that guy speak before, and he said hemp is not an emergency. They decide what is more important, and they decide that rape kits are more important. They decide that fentanyl issues are more important. Mm-hmm. So the forensic scientist, which we agree with because there is no emergency. Mm-hmm. So, and Shaun was the one who said this. Shaun was like, oh, so they're taking our money to stop rapes and to deal with fentanyl. Yes. And I'm like, oh my God.
70% of 1.2 million to stop rape.
I mean, we're
to
assuming
provide
that.
Rape kits.
We're assuming that because they haven't told us.
Where does the money go?
Where
but
does
if
the money
he
go?
says that they are prioritizing, because he did say that. I remember his testimony because I thought it was actually quite beneficial and I couldn't tell where he was coming from. Like, I was like, who are you with? Like, are you with us? Are you against us? I think he's just speaking to facts.
I agree.
He says that their labs are overwhelmed. It's true. Their labs don't test as comprehensively as ours do in the industry. Yeah. It would make sense that they're overwhelmed. He said also that they were allocating resources from taxpayer funds, not to testing, not to enforcement, but to other things. And he specifically said fentanyl and rape kits. Yeah. And me, as a Texas woman, happy to support y'all. Yeah.
Deal with those rape kits.
So, Senator Perry, you're telling me that we've gotten drugs off the street, that we've contributed to possibly providing rape kits for women in Texas, and that we're also contributing to the war on drugs against fentanyl, which is actually a danger, not a plant.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about compromising something that Texans love to talk about, which is border security. Mm. You're talking about compromising border security by driving everything underground and into illicit markets.
You put that 8 to 12 billion right back in the hands of underground operators. And most of them at a certain level are not nice players. And the ones who were got into hemp farming because they're trying to do it the right way.
Absolutely. And if you look, and like I said, the new economic impact report should be out today. And I got some rough numbers last week that we could use for the hearing. So don't quote me on this because I'm just using what they sent me. And in the email, it said very rough numbers. But employment went down from 50,100 jobs to 49,000. Retail sales went from 3.3 billion to 4.1 billion.
So we're doing more with less.
Correct. Now, I don't know why the employee thing would have gone down other than that people get more efficient the longer they're in business. They do things better, that kind of.
Maybe hiring less, but also the economy overall has gone through some ways.
There's some natural attrition there for sure. Yeah. So you're talking about cutting out $4.1 million in retail sales, which equals, and Lucas, our CEO, figured this out one day on the back of a piece of cardboard, but
that sounds like veteran science.
Yeah. He calculated that that would equal to the state having to pay out over $500 million in unemployment fees, right? Or payments that go to people.
Yes, because they said this would only cost nothing.
It would cost
then
nothing.
Then he came up with some numbers.
And it'll only affect 10% of the market according to their fiscal note.
Yeah.
In addition to which, it will eliminate $256 million in retail sales taxes. That's just the 6.25%. That doesn't include the county and city taxes either.
Yeah.
Right? So that would be even more money, tax money that they're saying goodbye to.
Plus unemployment for everyone that they put out of a job.
Correct. And when he did the unemployment numbers, he used $17 or $18 an hour to just keep it
super base.
Yes. So you're not even talking about management level or
which
people
is
who would
mostly we're looking at 25. He really underrated it then.
He did. So you're looking at a much bigger.
We're looking 25 to 50 an hour at least.
So I say all that to say that Texas has its own Doge program. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Yeah, every state's getting one these days.
So Texas has its own Doge program. Are you going to tell me that people are okay with eliminating $1 billion out of the state's coffers just like that?
Mm-mm.
I mean, where is the benefit to putting a bunch of people on unemployment? And the thing is that it doesn't matter what one person wants. It's what the constituents want, right? And so the question for legislators is, are you going to do the right thing, or are you going to cave in to somebody who's willing to metaphorically set themselves on fire over an issue? And that's the question.
And then you get caught with egg on your face because Senator Perry did make regulations, and they did do it for consumable hemp, and they were aware that people were going to consume these products, edibles, drinks, everything that the industry came up with because consumers wanted it. The industries don't come up with shit just randomly. They come up with things consumers are asking for. And then some products, of course, you go too far, you need to pull it back. Some things, but we could do that with safe testing, research, regulation.
I remember back in the vape days, because I started out in the vape space back in 2011. And I remember in the vape days, I had a legislator in DC say to me, well, you guys you have flavored vapes because you're trying to attract children. You guys are all backed by the cigarette companies, and nothing could have been further than the truth. And I was like, we have flavored vapes because customers demand flavored vapes. They want to move away from the tobacco taste.
Candy.
Yes.
I'm a grown-up.
My sister's favorite thing is gummy bears. She has it delivered from Amazon once a month, she loves gummy bears. And so they get these ideas and they tack on malicious intention as opposed to just looking at the reality. And, Occam's razor, really whatever the most logical explanation that requires the least amount of macarenas and, crazy is the truth. So the truth is, and it's pretty obvious, people started a business. When I hear legislators say, and the lieutenant governor said in an interview one time, I think it was in writing that I saw it, that the industry opened stores to sell to children. And I'm like, that is the worst business model anywhere. I mean, I don't have kids, but I don't know that, I have a next door neighbor with kids. The other neighbor has kids. None of them have money. These kids are not running around with a wallet and flashing hundos.
Who's giving, that's the joke at Halloween when they're like, make sure you don't get weed candy. And you're like, who the hell is giving away edibles, and where can I find them?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, and just like with over 21 sales or whatever, and this is again my messaging when you go out on the hill and you do your thing, The overwhelming majority of the market is responsible because it's in their best interests to do so. There's no benefit to selling to a minor that's not worth the headache and the drama that comes with it, which is why people self-regulate. So I'm just asking that everybody bear in mind, and anybody who listens to this later or whatever, if you're going to engage with your legislators, please talk about the positives of the industry. They have enough negative information to use. We do not need to keep handing them things, trying, these individual, and listen, I am all about the individual rights and freedoms and all that. And in this case, trying to carve out a little section for yourself versus maintaining the entire industry is absolutely the wrong thing to do. And you're garbage if you do that. Like, it's not right.
Agreed. We've seen it happen in other states, and culturally and reputationally, those people don't recover. They may still make some money. They may become the big box Walmart, but it never really flies with the culture. And most of those folks aren't open anymore.
I had a conference call at 8:00 on Friday morning, and it was Arkansas. And because we have a lawsuit in Arkansas also. And so it was just a big mix up about what the subject of discussion was on this call. And it turned out that instead of talking about the vape ban that they're proposing in Arkansas, it was about a drinks bill. So it was just a carve out for the drinks bill. And unbeknownst to me, the guy who owns that drink company and his lobbyist were both on the call. And I didn't know who any of these people were. So there were like 6 people on the call, and I was feeling kind of crappy because I've been sick all week. And so I get on the call, and the guy with the beverage brand he said something like, well, these products are unregulated and nobody knows what's in them. And I said, let me stop you right there. I said, just none of that is true. I said, people do not sell into just one state. They have to comply with every state. So they meet the highest compliance possible so that they can sell in every state. I said, so the idea that these are unregulated and nobody knows what's in them is ridiculous. And he said, well, it's an unregulated market. And he said, unlike the regulated cannabis market. And I said, this is how I know that you're new. Because anybody who says the regulated cannabis market, when they mean marijuana, hasn't spent 5 minutes doing any research whatsoever. I said, it is all cannabis. And he's like, no, cannabis is marijuana. I said, no. I said, you need to go back and talk to your people, talk to your marketing people, this was not a great call. I'm going to say that. It didn't go great.
And they set it up. They set it up that way. They set it up.
It was an ambush. It was a total ambush. And he said, well, I don't care about edibles or all the other stuff. And I said, see, that's another problem right there, because you're telling me that you're going to throw everything else under the bus so that you can get this drinks carve out.
Making me realize, why did we get called into a special session last year for drinks? Why did that happen? That was interesting.
The interim hearing.
Yeah, it was like, let's talk about drinks.
Why didn't we do it in May when we were why do we have a hearing about hemp and then it's all about TCUP?
They separated everybody out. And then they smash you together to get you out.
Listen, it is ridiculous, but I do want to talk about the Texas lawsuit.
I do. Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's talk about we did cover economic impact. We got that. A couple $100 million, if not close to $1 billion. Tell us about how your injunction saved Texas hemp, because it did. I know you can't say that, but I will.
Thank you. In 2021, the Texas legislature tried to ban, and it was easily, it wasn't even heard. We got it shut down, whatever. And so in response, they tried to ban hemp by calling it Delta 8, and I'll explain in a second. They tried to ban it procedurally. So they tried to go through dishes and just say, oh, dishes ban this, right? But it was an APA violation, which is an Administrative Procedures Act violation. They didn't do it the right way. So we sued and we got an injunction in 2021, and the entire state of Texas has been operating off of that injunction that we got in 2021. It's at the Texas Supreme Court right now. It's possible that the Supremes will wait and see what happens during session. I don't know. There's 90 days.
It's not what they're supposed to do. Judiciary is supposed to be separate, but we see how much everything is kind of bleeding together.
If it saves them having to go through a whole court trial or something like that, they may hold off and see what happens. Alternatively, they may not. We don't know. But it's at the Supreme Court right now, and we'll see what happens. So there are so many different scenarios. We can win legislatively. The court could still rule against us, or the other way around. Or, or the court stands down if we, get our bill passed this year or something. Or we could go into 2027 with nothing having happened and having to do this all over again in 2 years.
I would take it.
Me too.
Let's have nothing happen.
I'm good with nothing. Status
Continue
quo works for
mission.
me. Because there's no emergency.
There is no emergency. We've taken drugs off the street. We are funding potentially rape kits and the fight against fentanyl. I feel like a hero today. What? I didn't know all of that. I thought, yeah, we're good partners.
Hey, not every hero wears a cape. So
there we go. Cynthia, thank you so much.
No, thank you. This was wonderful. I appreciate it. Sorry for being late.
Not at all. You were right on time. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Highly Informed. Oh, yes. 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 Thank you so much. We'll come back with Nick Mortellaro. More to come up next.